Hello and welcome to this video tutorial where today we're going to be taking a look at creating some basic animation techniques using Toon Boom Animate and Stickman figures. So I'm using Animate version 1, so whichever version you have you'll be able to follow along no problem because all the tools will be available to you. So what we're going to do first off is take a look at the construction of the stick figure. Although character wise it's a fairly simple character to design, but we need to look more carefully at how it's constructed and rigged and put together all the articulations and create the symbols and so on. So as you can see on the screen here, I've got half of a stickman built. What I've done, I've just kind of tried to get it proportionally correct here. So obviously things like these pieces will be joined together, so they'll get a bit shorter when we start to overlap these. And what I've done, I've created the head using the ellipse tool, and using the line tool, which is here, I've created all the body parts this way. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just point something out if you are going to use the line tool. So I'm just going to copy and paste this and put it side by side. Okay, so what we have here, because this was created using the line tool, it's kind of a stroke width, which means no matter what size we enlarge or shrink to, this stroke width is going to stay consistent. So if we bring this, if we bring this up in size, it'll appear to get thinner, and if we bring it down in size, it'll appear to get thicker compared to the body part size. So what we need to do is do something to this artwork to make sure that if we enlarge or shrink, everything will stay proportionate to the character. So what we're going to do is, if you're using the line tool, is just select everything, go up to drawing, convert, pencil lines to brush strokes, and you'll see it change the way this looks. There was a line in the middle now it's kind of gone on the outside. So it's created this artwork here, it's kind of made it into more of a fill shape. So if we select everything, we can see the difference here. Okay, so say we want to shrink this character on the stage. If we do this now, you'll see that the one we've converted stays in proportion, whereas this one on the left here has kind of looked like it's all mushed up and got bigger. So this is where we need to be careful creating the artwork. So make sure before you create the symbols and so on, that if you are using the line tool, that you convert your lines to brush strokes there. Okay, so zoom out, and the same if we enlarge. If we bring this up, you'll notice that these appear to be thinner and these have stayed in proportion. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just delete this one. Let's get rid of that, and what we're going to do is start building this character up into the full stick man. And using the select tool, I'm just going to start positioning these pieces in place. I want this to overlap to create an articulation. If I select both these pieces, I can see where they're overlapping, so I want to bring this up a bit more, so I've got more of a circular shape here, maybe down a bit. Okay, something like that. And this is the hand. Let's bring this up. Okay, so something like that. And what we can do here is duplicate this. So rather than creating the same arm again, we can just copy and paste. Just Control C, Control V, and I'm going to push this over to the other side of the model here. Okay, so let's do the same with the leg here. So this piece, can bring this up, something like this, and this foot we can bring up now. Okay, so I need to bring this in first. So something like that should be fine, and we're going to do the same here. Control C, Control V, nudge this up a bit. And we need to flip this obviously, or we could move the foot along, but I'm just going to flip this. So drawing, transform, flip horizontal, and move this across. Okay, so these are all our body parts now for the character of the stick man. And what we're going to do is just position them a bit better, and then we'll start to look at converting these into the symbols. First off, what I'm going to do is this timeline. We're exposed to about 60 frames. Now this happens by default when you open the program, so I'm going to bring this down to 1, because when we convert these to symbols, if we had it open at 60, we'd be creating symbols that contain 60 drawings. We don't need that, so I've just brought it down to frame 1. Okay, and what we're going to do is just start to position these in situ to the body here, so everything's kind of connected for the time being. So the head, just going to bring down, and this arm, what I'm going to do is rotate it so it's horizontal. Make sure it's pointing the right way, so you obviously want the hand at the outside here. And I'm going to bring this up, not all the way up the top. We want to create a neck area here, so something around there. And also, I don't want it to overlap this here, so I want this to be kind of around there, I guess. Okay, so the same with this arm. Let's rotate this, and we want to bring it up the same distance as this arm. And the same distance in, and these legs, let's just tilt these slightly, so somewhere around there. Okay, so let's bring the legs up, and I'm going to bring them in just a bit. So I want to create this kind of, this here I want to be one kind of rotation point here for the legs, so I want to bring them up just a bit more. Okay, something like that. So I've got these legs and the bottom of the torso there, kind of in this nice little segment there. Okay, so what we can do now is convert all these into symbols. So all we're going to do, we're going to label them correctly. Okay, so over here where the tool properties are, we've got the library tab. So let's open this just so we can see what's going on. And to create a symbol, all we need to do is select each part. So here I'm selecting the head. I'm going to hit the shortcut, which is F8. So we can now convert this to a symbol. So here we can name it. So this will just be head. And you'll see over in the library, we've got this symbol now with one drawing. As I was saying earlier, if we had the timeline open at 60, we'd have 60 of these little dashes with 60 empty drawings in, which we don't want. So let's select this. We'll call this torso. Okay, and here let's start naming these arms and legs. And what I'm doing at the moment, I'm just thinking that this character is facing us, so I'm imagining he's got a face. So this would be his left arm and this would be his right. So I'm just thinking in terms of a character facing me. So I've not got the left and right mixed up. I'm just thinking that this is his left arm if he's facing us. So what I'll do, let's name this. I'll abbreviate it L for left, and we'll call this top arm. This will be left forearm and left hand. The other side, this would be right top arm, and this is the forearm, and the right hand. Okay, so the legs. So naming things correctly is quite wise, because when we start to look at the creating the hierarchy for these pieces, we need to know what they're named in the timeline for us to connect everything. So this is the reason why we're naming everything sensibly. Okay, nearly there. So this is right to lower leg and right foot. So that's everything converted to symbols, and you can see in the library here everything symbolised. And what we can do out in this main timeline is now delete everything we have here. So all these layers, we're just going to select everything, hit the minus key, just OK to confirm that. And what we can do here is just select all of these symbols together, drag them out, and it brings them onto the stage in the correct position we had before. So what we need to do now is create hierarchies for all these body parts, so that the hand is connected to the forearm to the top arm, and so on, and the same with the legs. And all we need to do is create those hierarchies down here in the layers. So I'm just going to click this arrow to bring this up, and I'm just going to get things in order a little bit, so they're in a bit of a jumble. So the right top leg, we want the right lower leg, and the right foot just beneath that. Okay, so then we have the left leg, and the arms. Okay, so I'm just getting these into the order, and to create the hierarchies all we need to do is just to drag the layers onto the appropriate parent layer. So the head, I'm going to make a child of the torso, so when we move the torso the head will be connected to that. So let's just drag, drop onto the torso, and you'll see this little arrow which we can close, and when we open again you'll see that the head is contained within that. So now we've got the legs, so the right foot is connected to the right lower leg, so click and drag on, and now we're going to connect the right lower leg to the right top leg, so just click, drag on top. So now the entire leg is one hierarchy. Just do the same with the left leg, so the foot onto the lower leg onto the top leg. So this is where you can see where the naming conventions are important, because if we just name things numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., it's going to be a bit more difficult. So this just makes your job a lot easier. Okay, so onto the left arm and the right arm. Okay, so let's bring this down, and what will happen now, if we go to the animate tool, so selecting the animate button and the transform tool here, if I select the top of the arm it's going to select everything that's connected to it, but if I select the forearm it's going to select what's connected to that, which is just the hand. So you can see here the hierarchies are working. So if I select the torso, the head's connected to that, and the same with these arms and legs. Okay, so that's the hierarchy taken care of. What I want to do now is just attach this entire character to a peg. Now a peg allows us to, it's a container for the character, so if we want to move the character on the stage or enlarge it or shrink it, using a peg will allow us to do that. So to create the peg we just need to come down into the timeline, make sure nothing is selected, come up to the plus sign here, select peg, and you'll see this new layer with just peg written on it, and all we need to do now is just select every layer containing all the character artwork and drag that on top of the peg. Now you'll see that those are all contained within the peg, so this means we can move this around, shrink it up and down, and so on. And what I'm going to do here in the first frame of that peg is just F6, which keyframes everything just there. Okay, so let's look at the articulations now, because what we have at the moment is each body part has got a rotation symbol, but we need to place them correctly. So for example, this arm, if I wanted to bend it at the elbow, if I select the forearm, you'll see here that this is clearly in the wrong place. Same at the wrist. So what we need to do is just reposition these points permanently. So let's open up the tool properties. Okay, and what we need to do is select each part and move that pivot point. So let's start with the head. At the moment, the point is right in the centre of the head, so if we rotate this, you're going to see no change. What we need to do is position this so that when we move the head, it appears to be tilting on the neck. So using the transform tool, we're going to select the pieces first and then move to this pivot tool here. So we just select that, and this allows us to move the pivot. Now this here is enabled. I'm going to disable this. We don't have a side and a back view, but what I'm going to do is disable this just out of force of habit. So this will just keep the pivot points independent in each view and so on. But what I'm going to do is just bring this down to around here. Then if I go back to the transform tool, you'll see now we've got a head tilt. And if we move on to the torso, so using the transform tool, now we go to the pivot tool. I'm going to bring this and I'm going to put it in the waist position just there. So when we go back to the transform tool, you'll see there it pivots on the waist there. Okay, so let's move to the arms. So remember to use the transform tool first, then go to the pivot tool. So around here, then we can test it out with the transform tool. So that's absolutely fine. Okay, so the forearm, let's try here. Okay, that works. And onto the wrist. Occasionally you'll need to tweak this. You won't get it bang on the money first time sometimes. So for instance here you can see it's kind of going inside the forearm, so we need to reposition this pivot point just a touch more. So maybe let's try this way first. Now that's too far, so we need to come back the other way. So let's try around here, maybe back a bit. And down. That'll be fine. I mean, you know, we'll be animating this character. We'll be away from a fair distance, so any tiny discrepancies aren't really going to notice. Okay, that's fine. But obviously, get it as close as you can. You know, spend the right amount of time on getting this correct. Okay. This wrist here. Okay, down to the legs. And the good thing about this Stickman character is that it's all one colour and there's no details in the parts, so we can kind of cheat the views. We can create the turnaround of this character simply by moving the parts. So we don't need to draw any side views or back views or anything like that. It's all down to literally moving the parts and cheating it, so to speak. Okay, so we need this to move around on the ankle. Okay, something like that will be fine. This leg. Okay, let's create the bend at this knee. Okay, and this foot to the final piece. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, so we've created all of our pivot points now, so we know that whether we move the top of the arm or the elbow or the wrist or the legs, everything is going to be pivoting at the correct place. Okay, so let's put this back. Okay, so we've got everything rigged up with the articulations in place. What we want to do now is just take a quick look at the setup of the inverse kinematics so that we can have all the points in position there. And to do that, all we need to do is, making sure we're using the animation tools, is select the peg, and the inverse kinematics tool is the fourth one down. Kind of looks like this little kite symbol. It's actually an IK bone, so we just click that, and here you can see all the points here. So you know, we can select these and start to move around, and instantly you'll see that we're rotating around this point here. And what this is if we go back here, you'll see this point is here. Now what that is, on this rotate tool, if we click here, you'll see we've got a rotation point here, so everything's rotating around there. So I'm going to just bring it down to the waist. Then when we go back to the IK, you'll see that we're rotating around there now. So you'll see the arms are moving away from the body. So what we're going to do is just isolate the torso from the rig, so this doesn't happen, and so on. So what we're going to do first is take the torso out of the rig. So let's open the peg and make sure the tool properties are open. And what we're going to do is just select the layer torso, so just click there, come over to the tool properties here, and this button here, this will exclude whatever piece is selected from the IK chain. So if we click that, that's now taken that out of the chain. So if we start to move around, you'll see that those arms are connected to the torso now, and they're not wandering around and so on. Okay, and what we need to do now is just tidy up these extremities. So you'll see this hand here, we've got this bone coming out here, which is kind of in the right position. We just need to shorten it a little bit. But on this hand, we want it coming out this way, away from the arm. So we need to reposition that. And these feet I'm just going to reposition slightly also. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's come up here. We're going to go to this tool, which is the bone addition tool. So let's click this, and again what I'm going to do is just select the part that I want to move this bone for. So this is the right hand. So let's go to the right arm, open up the hierarchy. I want to select the right hand, click the actual pivot point there and just pull, and you'll see now that we're resizing and moving this point wherever we need it. So I want it to be, say, around there. That's absolutely fine. So that's set in place. Let's close up the arm. Now with the left arm, I'm going to select the left hand, and I'm literally going to just make this a bit smaller, somewhere around there. Okay, so now on to the right leg. We want the right foot. I'm just going to maybe somewhere around there for the time being. Later on we might find we want to move these a little bit when we start animating, but let's place things where they are right now. And this one here. Okay, so let's close this, and now I'm going to go back to the this tool here. So this will allow us to just move all the parts now. Okay, so let's close the peg, and now sure enough we can more easily select these points. So what we can do, we can move pieces using the IK, and then if we want a bit more fine control, we can come back to the transform tool here, and we can select these pieces and just move them very slightly. Slight adjustments there. Okay. So let's select the entire peg here. Go back to the IK. So I think everything's set up how we want it. So I've excluded the torso from the chain just so that the arms and everything connect to it properly, and everything moves okay. If I want to tilt the head, I can just use the transform tool, come in and do it that way. So that's building and rigging up the stickman. So it's not quite as simple as drawing a stickman on the stage and just animating. We need to look at the way everything's set up, the articulations, the pivot points and so on. So this file will be included in with the course, so if you don't want to create your own character, you can just get straight in, take this model and just get animating with it. But I would recommend taking the steps from the very start to build and rig your own characters. Even something like a stickman is good practice, and it's just good to know what all the tools are as you're using them. So as I say, this will be included in with the package, so practice building the character, follow along, get all the pivot points in place, and what we're going to do in the lessons following is start to look at the animation of the stickman character. So practice this first, build your character, get it rigged up, and once you're ready, move on to the next lesson and we'll start animating.